making an end-of-life decision for someone you love is a devastating experience. It's emotionally devastating. And you're torn between what reason tells you and what your heart doesn't want to accept.
You're watching the Spotlight Network. Starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford. Streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're taking a look at a tremendous book. It's an absolute page-turner, and it's very introspective as well. It is called A Life Almost Perfect. It is written by a terrific author. Her name is Patrizia Ciava. And in the book, she explores the emotional and philosophical struggles of a woman faced with an impossible choice, whether to end life support for her comatose husband, the man who once saved her life. Parallel to her story is the confessional diary of a famed composer whose seemingly perfect life hides deep inner turmoil and eerie visions. Through these interconnected stories, the author crafts a haunting meditation on love, memory, and consciousness, and what it truly means to be alive. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put her in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Patrizia, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. What inspired the emotional core of your book, A Life Almost Perfect?
Well, I guess the idea for this novel had been lingering at the back of my mind for quite some time. You know, every time I came across real life stories of family members having to decide whether to keep or not a loved one on life-sustaining treatments, I always wondered, what would I do in their place? And then eventually I had to face this heart-wrenching decision myself when my mother suffered a stroke and she was left in a vegetative state. So in this novel, the protagonist is a young woman whose husband has been in a coma after an accident for more than a year, and the doctors offer her hope and ask her to authorize the withdrawal of life support. But she can't bring herself to accept this verdict. You know, as long as he's there and she can see him, she can touch him, she can hold his hand, it's hard to believe that he's truly gone. So she wants to try everything to bring him back before giving up hope. And, you know, making an end-of-life decision for someone you love is a devastating experience. It's emotionally devastating. And you're torn between what reason tells you and what your heart doesn't want to accept. So this is what I wanted to sort of explore and describe, the emotional tangle you're in, and you know, all the feelings that overlap and collide all the time, like love and hope and despair and denial. That's also typical. I mean, you don't want to accept reality, so denial becomes a sort of shield, a sort of defense. And there's always that nagging thought, what if the doctors are wrong? What if he could recover? What if he still feels something? We've all seen cases, even though they're very rare, of people recovering from a coma, even after years sometimes. So what if he could be the one? This is what the protagonist asks herself. But I also wanted to offer a different perspective. Her mother-in-law can't bear to see her son in that condition. She thinks he's gone and there's nothing to do, there's nothing left to do, so she would like to let him go and give him back his dignity. Yeah. And this reflects what happens in real life, because family members don't always agree when in situations like this. So the big question here is does love mean holding on or finding the courage to let go? And I don't want to give any answers here. And, it's a very personal decision to make. And I don't want to say what's right or wrong because everyone has to feel their own way and make their own decisions. I just wanted to offer a space for empathy, for reflection. And because unfortunately, these situations can happen to anyone, and no one really knows how you would react until it actually happens to you.
Life is extended more and more because of biomechanicals and because of medicines. That choice becomes very, very real for a lot of people, particularly in dealing with our aged parents. And it's very tough because you want them to live somehow. You're praying for that miracle, but you also don't want to see them suffer, whether if they're on a
Yes.
ventilator or something like that. And it's a terrible, terrible situation to be in. I was in it with my mother, and it was awful. And you still
Yeah.
second guess yourself afterwards, did you do the right thing or not? And our
Yeah, you
decision
never
was
know.
to prolong as long as possible. And I actually feel in retrospect, I wish I just let her go more peacefully early on. Um, but it was very,
I made
very
the
tough.
same choice actually. I made the
Yeah.
same choice actually. I just, and unfortunately, she didn't make it in the end, but I'm glad I made that choice because that's what I felt like doing at the moment. I told you it's totally personal and something no one can tell you what's right or wrong, really. I mean, everyone has to make that choice for themselves and, what they feel is right for that person.
Yeah.
But it's terribly difficult.
It is very,
Or-
very difficult. And like you
yeah.
said, you're in it at that moment. You're operating with the information that you have, and you make the best decision. Afterwards, you might second guess yourself, but it's a tragedy. That's what it comes
Yeah.
down to. Let me
Yeah.
ask you this. Let's talk about the connection between the woman's journey and the composer's diary. Weaving those together is quite fascinating. Tell us why you did that, how you did that, and developing that connection.
Well, yes, but yeah, okay. So actually, the book is structured as two parallel diaries, his and hers, and they unfold side by side, chapter by chapter. And the composer actually looks like her complete opposite. He's the man living the dream. He's got everything. He's a successful composer. He's a rock star. He's the front man of his band. And we follow him through his gigs and world tours, and he's adored by millions of fans. So in the beginning, it's very hard to see what the connection between these two characters could be because they just seem worlds apart.
Yeah.
But as the story unfolds, we start seeing some cracks underneath the surface, even for this composer. He starts experiencing some weird visions, even hallucinations, and he starts having a sort of sense of unreality,
Mm.
and he starts questioning, his identity, his memories, even the functioning of his own brain. He starts getting worried that he might have some mental problem. But let's say that the connection between these two characters becomes clear in the second part of the book. And it comes as quite, I think, quite unexpected and quite surprising because it just redefines the whole book and the whole story. But
Mm.
I don't want to, I have to
We
stop
don't
here
want to
because I don't
spoil
want
it.
to spoil the surprise because
Yeah,
it's really a small mystery. Because
sure.
in the beginning, you can't really see what the connection between these two characters is because they just live really different lives. And it's just like two parallel diaries.
Mm.
But I told you, then there's a connection, of course, between these two, but you discover it once you read the book,
Yeah,
once you get to the second
absolutely.
part of the book.
Absolutely. It's masterfully woven together, and it does kind of all make sense when it happens, but it does seems incongruous at first. Music plays a powerful role in this story. What does it symbolize for you as a writer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've always been fascinated, by the power of music. It's unbelievable. I think it's almost magical the way a beautiful melody can stir memories, it can bring back memories, it can move you to tears sometimes or lift your spirits in ways that no other, no other means can. So I was always wondering, how does it happen? What is it in music that makes you feel that way, that it can just bring joy or sadness. And it's a universal language too. I mean, it can cross borders and barriers and language and cultures across even centuries. So for me, um, music represents the mystery of consciousness itself. And by consciousness, I mean the awareness of being alive, um, the fact that we sense the world around us, that we know that we are alive, that we feel emotions, that we feel feelings. And science hasn't yet been able to quite fully explain where emotions derive from. And so that's the big question. Actually, the focus in the book is actually about this. I wanted to explore this issue in extreme situations, like in a situation when a person is in a coma. Does that mean that if the brain falters, there's nothing else? Does that mean that that person can't feel anything, can't remember, can't dream? Or is it possible that something remains even though science isn't able to measure it, isn't able to detect it? So, it's one of those issues that's been investigated by numerous, by religions and science and so on. So, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be truly alive? Where does consciousness originate from? Is it just our brain? Is it just brain activity, or is there something else? And, I'd like to share a personal story, which also inspired me in writing this book. My father lived to be 101.
Wow.
And yes, but, in the last years of his life, he had a bit of dementia and he no longer recognized me. So every time he saw me, and that was every day because I lived next door. So he saw me every day. But every time he saw me, he would go, "Oh, madam, do I know you? I can't remember your name." But at the same time, he seemed so happy to see me. He hugged me tightly and his eyes were sparkling with joy. So I asked the neurologist, I said, my father doesn't recognize me, but he seems really happy to see me. So how come? How do you explain this? And you know what he said? He said, well, that's because your father doesn't recognize you rationally, but he recognizes the feelings he has for you. And that was really a revelation for me. So that means that feelings are more important than intellect that can survive even if even the brain falters, or even in the case of I won't say brain death, but in the case that the brain shuts down, feelings are still there and they have the capacity to reconnect and to emerge, even if science has declared that there's no brain activity, there's no, you know,
Amazing.
cerebral activity. So that was something that made me wonder, and I wanted to share that with the readers. And it's a question. Here again, I can't offer any answers because no one can. But it's just a suggestion. The novel plays with the idea that maybe something, is still there, even if a person is not is pronounced like that there's no brain activity,
Right.
but maybe something is still there. Descartes
Yeah.
said, "I think, therefore I am," but maybe the right formula should be, "I feel, therefore I am."
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. These are all wonderful, ponderous thoughts. And I think they're great to deliberate on, to think about, because it really does strike at the heart of what it means to be alive, what it means to be human. And I think that science can measure brain waves. I think they can monitor your body movements, your eye movement, but they don't have a way to register your soul. And that's the part that's absent from science. That's the part where the miraculous recoveries come from, because a person had a struggle or a desire to live, and your dad, not recognizing you on the surface, had this emotional attachment to you, which I think is such a wonderful, beautiful thing. So many wonderful thoughts, so much to unpack here in this great book. It is called A Life Almost Perfect. In the book, Patrizia crafts a haunting meditation on love, memory, consciousness, and what it truly means to be alive. Patrizia, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure, and all the best to you. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Great having you on the show. I appreciate all of your deep philosophical thoughts. Always my favorite topic in school, philosophy for sure,
Okay, I'm
Descartes,
glad.
whoever it might be. And
Okay.
to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.